Welcome to episode number 365 of What a Time to Be Alive, the show where I take you through all of the times to be alive that would not be as good of times to be alive as right now, because right now, what a time to be alive. Guys, and as you know, just like every episode of What a Time to Be Alive, this one is brought to you by the Alec Baldwin represented people of eToro. Now, I love eToro. You know why? Because when I got my foot in the game, when I opened the door and I peeked into the world of cryptocurrency trading, I was not very good. I didn't know what I was doing, okay? So eToro was perfect for me because what it did was it gave me a place to trade with virtual currency, okay? I got to trade this fake internet money with actually fake internet money, if that makes sense, So if you're not comfortable putting your dollar in and getting $1 of Bitcoin and then trading with that online, what you can do is you can put $0 in and then you get a fake dollar of Bitcoin and you can trade all that around. They give you $100,000 of virtual fake money. And these cryptos still update in real time, okay? And they still behave like they would as if you had real money in there, but it's of no risk to you. You just get your feet wet, you start trading, and before long you're straight to the top of the crypto mountain, okay? Because after you go in there and after you start to get familiar with the platform, okay, this is when you step it up a notch. You take it from virtual currency to regular, real American dollars, and then you get some Bitcoin and you get some Ethereum that's actually worth something, okay? And then you start trading with that. Guys, at youmeanbtc.com/trade, we're giving you the opportunity to practice trading cryptos for free. You know what else is awesome? The Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo, boys. I've been a bit ill. Nothing major. Just came down with like a flu and then transformed into a cold, and I'm on like day 8 or 9 of being sick. But I just wanted to get back in here because I took a little bit of a break for Christmas on these eps. And then right after New Year's and stuff, we were supposed to get back into recording. Then I came down with a terrible case of the bubonic plague. And I think I've just about fought it off here. I'm just about to the end of the road to recovery. I've just got a few more days, and my voice is sounding a little goofy right now, and I'm coughing all the time. I got the chest, I got the chest congestion and stuff like that, and I'm blowing. But guys, man, I'm getting better, and it feels good to be better. You ever notice how you don't appreciate being able to breathe until you're sick and you're like, man, I really wish my nostrils worked? Or you never really appreciated being able to speak without coughing, and then you get sick and you're like, man, I remember when I wasn't coughing like every 10 minutes and 5 minutes, 30 seconds. This being sick has put things in perspective for me on the Super Nintendo. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what you got until it's gone, and that's what I've been trying to tell you guys. Okay? And something that is gone is the charm of video games that we used to have back in this time period. Now you get everything handed to you on a silver platter in AAA releases. You get the tutorial that teaches you how to do everything. There's no intuition. There's no need for good game design. There's no need to provide a story that allows people's, imaginations to take over and stuff like that. I almost think it is harder to come up with something like The Legend of Zelda, right? The thing of the original one where you're dropped into a world and it's time to go, or Mega Man X. Okay, that's a good example. You get a little bit of backstory, but for the most part, in those games, you're just dropped into it and like it's time to go. Whereas stuff like let's look at a modern day masterpiece, Red Dead Redemption 2. Okay. every single moment of that game, you are having your hand held. There's really no creativity or imagination on your part because every single bit of the storyline is spoon-fed to you. You get a little bit of that in these games like The Legend of Zelda or Mega Man X or any of the original Mega Mans or Mario, whatever. But for the story to pull you in, it's got what? It's got like a couple hundred words to do it, you know? Whereas you might as well be reading a novel when you take a look at like the script and the cinematics from things like Red Dead Redemption 2. Whereas back in the day, you had to have that charm to suck people in, to make them want to come back and keep playing. Now, half the time playing games are like watching a movie. Where it's not necessarily as active. The consumer isn't as active in digesting the games as they used to be. Now they're way more immersive and they're way closer to real life, but it didn't necessarily feel like that 25 years ago because these games would have the ability to get you to transport yourself into the shoes of the main character just by being fun and enjoyable. And it didn't need a bunch of dialogue to do that. Now, guys, I'm not out here saying that video games today are somehow less impressive. They're not. They're way more impressive. They're way greater works of art. I mean, when you think about, let's compare all works of art since the Jesus started roaming the earth. Okay, so let's say the last 2020 years. And you look at all those pieces of, like, honestly, Mega Man 1 and Red Dead Redemption 2, they're like, they're what? Like 2% apart on that timeline? What, 30 years difference in when those games came out of a span of 2,000 years. It's like a relatively short period of time within 2,000 years. And if you look at one and you look at the other and you're like, what is the better video game? People are going to be like, oh, Red Dead Redemption 2. But in the context of playing these things, like if I didn't know what video games were going to be in 2020 and you take me back to 1990, I think the way that we consumed, I wasn't born in 1990, but I was born a little bit after that, okay, we'll say 1995, right? So I'm 3 years old, I'm kicking around, I'm playing these little games here. I think the way that it forces the player to be creative and stuff, it was just more enjoyable for me. Now, I'm not saying that that's the way it should be, and I think it's perfectly reasonable if you enjoy Red Dead Redemption 2 more than you enjoy Super Mario World. That's just not how I see it. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give you a little glimpse of my perspective here on these things and provide an argument why something that's in 16-bit and only lasts a few hours of gameplay at maximum can possibly even think about competing with something that's 100 hours of super immersive gameplay in 4K. And I just think that the Super Nintendo was one of the best ways to consume media ever in that way, in that it gave you the balance between, hey, like, here's your objective and here's what you have to do and here's the story. But it made me feel like, I don't know, like I had a bigger stake in the game. You know what I mean? Like, when I die in Super Mario World, I just feel more pain from that than I do from dying in Red Dead Redemption 2. Like, I just feel like the way things were left to the imagination, they were more innocent and they required a bit more creativity on the user's part to kind of fill in the gaps that technically a system left in the storyline. I just really like that, and it got me more invested in the games. That's why I really love things like Super Mega Baseball 2, is I don't have everything spoon-fed to me. I don't have it telling me, this player's in a slump and you gotta take him out or something. Like, I just see what happens on the field and then I make those decisions. Whereas, you go look at something, MLB The Show or current sports games, you got look in, you can see like, okay, this player is now 35 and so they're on the downside of their career. So these these attributes are deteriorating by X amount every few months. And you've got this much longer to have Ibrahimovic in your lineup before his pace isn't to where it needs to be. And you're like, oh, okay. And it's cool. It's way more realistic because a real physio and manager and coach are going to like know these things. But there's just not the same sense of innocence and amazement and fun that comes with something. That's just what I prefer, and I could be totally off base to 90% of the people listening, but I just wanted to tell you how I think that these games from 25 years ago can possibly be as entertaining as the games that are out there today, because objectively it doesn't really make sense. But I think subjectively, when you look at what gaming was and versus what it's become, I think somebody who's kind of been there all the way along can easily understand what I'm talking about in terms of charm. For me, gameplay is king. And that's what makes me want to come back to these games and stuff like that. Now, I do appreciate great graphics. I love how in sports games, 99% of players, they have the super detailed face scans in there, and they don't all look generic like creative players anymore. Even just 10 years ago, the PS2, like Madden, they didn't render players' individual faces. They would get like their skin color right, and maybe on the sidelines if they had some hair or not. But today, you've got like ultra realistic renderings of all these different players in the NFL and stuff like that, and you just lose some of the creativity on the user's part. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing in general. I'm just saying that's not something that I enjoy experiencing as much as, the games that I'm talking about on this list. So guys, we're going to jump in now. Finally, we're going to be 14 minutes in and I'm getting to my first Super Nintendo game. I do apologize for my voice today. Like I said, been a little sickly lately. I hope I'm not contaminating this microphone. Maybe Dan Brown will get in here with a little spray bottle of Lysol or something. Lysol, that'll be $50 for me mentioning your product on this. You can just, you can send that over, youmeanbtc.com. Just send the Venmo, attention, Ryan Tofil, Riptide. I'm sure it'll find its way to me. Number 40, Lufia and the Fortress of Doom. Guys, RPG. Now, I just spent a bunch of time telling you about how much I love these older games, especially when you compare it to the games of today. And now here's one I haven't even played. I just half hiccup burp, and then I smashed his microphone, which rattled around in the background, so I'm sorry for that background noise. I'm trying to be way better about background noise, guys. I'm not drinking pop anymore, so I'll stop burping into the microphone, okay? I'm trying to leave stuff alone on the desk. I'm trying not to click my mouse too much, and importantly, I listened to my last podcast, and I grabbed the microphone, like, constantly. At least I think it was the microphone. Maybe it could be like my chair moving around or something like that, but I'm definitely leaning toward the fact that it was my microphone. This game, number 40, Lufia and the Fortress of Doom, released in 1993, developed by Neverland, published by Taito. state. Now, this is an old school RPG. And you know my motto, old school RPG, kind of cool, not for me. That's what I say. Old school RPG, kind cool, not for me. RPG, not for me. RPG, not for me. You chant that till the cows come home. Luffy and the Fortress of Doom is still number 40 on this list, and I don't know what to tell you because I don't really like RPGs either. They're just not for me. The only RPGs I've got into are Zelda. Kind of, if you want to classify that. I mean, I've played a little bit of Link to the Past. I've played much of Link's Awakening remastered, much of the original Link's Awakening, and then the Game Boy Color port. Breath of the Wild I played a little bit of. I tried to play Ocarina of Time. Zeldas are just not for me, but I don't even know if that counts as an RPG. Maybe you want to call it action RPG. Maybe you want to call it adventure. I don't know. I don't really like RPGs, and Zelda just has enough of those elements where it's not really for me, and I'm like leveling up and stuff like that, and that's not really what I'm into. I mean, the most RPG thing I've ever really played and enjoyed are Pokemon, and even then I've never played anything outside of Gen 1. Because I played Leaf Green, and I played Yellow, and I played Blue and Red. And that's about it. I like those games, but I think any more than that, and it just becomes a little too detailed for me. And I think maybe it's in the same part of my brain that thinks that Red Dead Redemption 2 kind of gives me information overload a little bit when I'm looking at all these cutscenes and I'm trying to keep everything straight. Like I just want a simple game with good gameplay. That's for me. And I totally understand why people are in love with RPGs and how you can put hundreds and hundreds of hours into them, but it's just not for me. If you like RPGs, it sounds like number 40 is about where you're going to put Luffy and the Fortress of Doom on this list. I mean, the reviews are saying, look, it's a really challenging game, but it's a really fulfilling game when you can beat it, as there are a lot of games on the Super Nintendo. RPG, just not for me, but I'm not going to argue with this because it's not my list. And you know what we've got on number 39? We've got another RPG. Shadowrun, released in 1993, developed by Beam Software and published by Data East. Shadowrun takes place in a bizarre cyberpunk future where orcs, elves, and vampires coexist with technology in grim industrial cityscapes. You are Jake Armitage, a courier in Seattle who is critically wounded by assassins. You awake in a morgue, plagued by amnesia. Your goal is to uncover exactly who you are and who wants you dead, based on the pen and paper RPG of the same name. Never played a pen and paper RPG either. I don't know if I'm assuming Dungeons and Dragons would be a pen and paper RPG, although I get a little confused because kids these days, they're playing with the boards and they got the thing. But as far as I know, much of all you need for Dungeons and Dragons is just like a dungeon book or something. I've never played it, man. I don't RPG. I am so sorry, guys. I don't RPG, and that's why I can't give number 40, Luffy and the Fortress of Doom, and number 39, Shadowrun, the attention they deserve. Now, If this was my own personal list, which maybe I can get into in the future, I would absolutely be able to comment on all 100 games. But this one is just very speckled with RPGs, which I don't have a ton of information on. So I'm really sorry about that, guys. If I'm for some reason somebody you look up to in the Super Nintendo knowledge sphere, I'm really letting you down on this account. I do know a decent amount about all of these things. I think that my shtick here is that I'm trying to come at you with a lot of entertainment value and maybe some energy and stuff like that. Not that I know every single thing. I mean, if you just want to put my Super Nintendo knowledge up against other Super Nintendo experts, I'm not going to be able to compete with them. Because like I said, I haven't even played half the games because I just stick in the genres that I know that I like, and I'm able to recommend games from my genres. I've never really ventured too much outside of that. Number 38, Earthworm Jim. Now, Earthworm Jim I have played a little bit, but I'm going to be honest with you. This is one of those titles that I just kind of associate with the Sega Genesis a little bit more. Does that make sense? Just kind of the aura of Earthworm Jim and the soundtrack and the visuals. It just seems like a Sega Genesis experience to me. I hope that makes sense, but you just gotta think about the grittiness of this Sega Genesis. And I'm trying to move my chair here, and I'm like scooching in a little bit at a time. Earthworm Jim is like a game for teenagers or young adults or whoever's, and it's an edgy type of game, compared to a lot of the things that you got roaming around like Kirby or Super Mario or Pilot Wings or Mario Kart or, whatever cute little thing you want to look at as far as a protagonist goes on the Super Nintendo. Earthworm Jim is not that. He's not. He's a gritty mother effer. He's a worm. He's comedy. He's funny. So that's why I kind of associate this with the Sega Genesis a little bit more than the Super Nintendo, because it just strikes me as, there are these outside factors that the Sega Genesis in whole was kind of dealing with. Does that make sense? So the Super Nintendo was kind of aimed at children and people who were growing up, or it didn't really aim to be that controversial or anything. And then Sega Genesis comes, and it's all about attitude. It's all about Sonic the Hedgehog. It's all about going fast. It's all about doing the things that Nintendo don't. And that's kind of where Earthworm Jim finds its niche in the game market. Whether you're talking on Super Nintendo or you're talking Sega Genesis, it's a game that I don't think that the platforming is going to beat Super Mario, and it's not going to beat Mega Man and stuff like that. So it has to find other ways to compete with those types of games in order to crack the top 40 on Super Nintendo games. And the way it does that is through its art style, through its great sound, through its weapons, through its comedies, through its great animation, through its difficulty, the atmosphere of the levels and stuff like that. So that's why I kind of just see it as like a Genesis type game. That doesn't mean it wasn't good on the Super Nintendo. That doesn't mean at all that it's not good. It was released in 1994, developed by Shiny Entertainment and published by Playmates Interactive Entertainment. Once upon a time, there was an evil tyrant, Queen Slugforobutt, who commissioned an ultra-high-tech, indestructible super space cybersuit that would make her nearly invulnerable and help further her goals of intergalactic conquest. But before the Queen could use the suit, it was stolen by a rebel spaceship pilot, so she hired the bounty hunter Psychro to track it down. Psychro managed to find the ship, but it exploded in the ensuing fight. The suit, being indestructible, fell safely to Earth, where it merged with an ordinary earthworm named Jim and transformed him into a superhero. After overhearing a conversation between Psychro and Queen Slugforobutt, Jim decided to use his new powers to end the Queen's tyranny and rescue her sister, the beautiful Princess What's-Her-Name. Which I don't agree with, and I don't think he does either, because then he goes on to say, okay, maybe that's a bit extreme, but Earthworm Jim was a weird, wacky, wonderful platformer, which was both brilliant in its design and flawless in its execution. I don't know if I would say that it's flawless in its execution. There are definitely some things in the game that are annoying. Things will come at you from off screen, and the gun isn't super accurate. Maybe you think you should be hitting an enemy, but you're not. The whip is not that satisfying. It's not like it is in something like Castlevania or a game like that. The whip is definitely kind of hit or miss as well. I don't know if that's ever going to make it onto a list of the best video game weapons. It's just a little inconsistent for my taste. But overall, we're talking about a very, 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 very good game here. A very good game. Earthworm Jim, I mean, most people will know what you're talking about if you said Earthworm Jim. Okay, and this game is released 25 years ago. They made a sequel for it. It was so successful. I don't think you're going to find too many people that argue against the idea that Earthworm Jim is a good game. I just don't think you're going to be able to do it. And that's why it's coming in at number 38. Number 37, Super R-Type. Now, I'll admit, I've never really been a huge fan of shmups, shoot 'em ups, whether they're vertically scrolling or side scrollers. I have been playing a few of them on the Sega Genesis Classic. It was released within the last 6 months at the time of recording, so I guess this is a rather recent development. But Super R-Type is it's a good game. It was ported everywhere, though, and I don't know where exactly Super Nintendo falls in terms of the ports. But it was released in 1991, developed and published by Irem. It suffered from a little bit of slowdown. It did. I mean, as did most early Super Nintendo games. I mean, especially the ones that were a little more intense. But a lot of people will say that it's the best shooter of the 16-bit era. Some people like other R-Type games. But I think that this might be the best shoot 'em up game on the Super Nintendo. Number 36, Super Smash TV, released in 1991, developed by Beam Software, under license from Williams Electronics, published by Acclaim. Now, this is one of those games that is just simply better on the Super Nintendo than it is on the Sega Genesis. You know why? Because on the Super Nintendo, it handles like a twin stick shooter. Does that make sense? You move your character around with the D-pad, okay? And then for the right buttons, you have X, which is kind of pointing up, Y, which is pointing left, B, which is pointing down, and A, which is pointing to the right. So, it's almost like you're holding two analog sticks, where you can control your character with the left analog stick, and then with the right analog stick is the direction in which he fires his gun. A lot of which a lot of such games. I can't talk. I don't know what I'm saying, but a lot of these twin stick shooters will be, you just press right on the right analog stick and your character will start shooting right. And that's the way it is in Super Smash TV. So say I want to be moving down on the screen. I want my character to be walking down, but I want to be firing toward the top of the screen. I could hold the directional down button while pressing the X button to make him fire upward. Now on the Sega Genesis, the control scheme is not nearly as intuitive because you don't have a button for every direction that he could be facing. So you're getting into, is he always going to be facing the way that your character is walking, or is he going to strafe a little bit? And what direction is he going to fire in? The Super Nintendo version of Smash TV just had the best controller configuration, and that's why for me this port on the Super Nintendo is better than the Sega Genesis port. I say that a lot. I don't say that all the time. I do think Earthworm Jim is better on the Sega Genesis. I think if you got a 6-button controller, that's a Street Fighter 2 might be better on the Sega Genesis. I think WWF Royal Rumble, which is not a game that is loved by a ton of people, but sure as heck is loved by me, is better on the Sega Genesis. Even though that's almost an identical game in terms of gameplay, I like the roster better on the Sega Genesis, and then I just think that the sound style fits a little better on the Sega Genesis because it's got that gritty tunage to it. You know what I'm saying? Super Smash TV. Do you like toasters? Do you like VCRs? Do you like giant piles of cash? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then why not compete on Smash TV, America's hottest new game show? As a contestant, you'll have the chance to grab millions of dollars in cash and prizes in the giant Smash TV soundstage labyrinth. There's just one small catch. The labyrinth is filled with explosive mines, exploding men, tanks, near endless swarms of angry gladiators, and giant bosses. Sid Lexia doesn't know why they call it Super Smash TV because it's pretty much a faithful port of the arcade game, which was just Smash TV. And ironically, it's actually more faithful to the original than the ports which are only called Smash TV. So the one that's called Super Smash TV is actually very similar to Smash TV, but the ones that are just called Smash TV are not that similar to Smash TV. Get it? Got it? Good. Number 35, Mario Paint. It's Mario doing art. In the screenshot here, Sid Lexia, they show, they've got 3 Goombas talking to one Yoshi, and the 3 Goombas are going, "We like cock," and Yoshi is saying, "Me too," and there's a small dog and a small cat on the screen. Also, you can climb a vine and go up to where Mario, a cactus, a car, a snowman, and a house are. In just works of art like this, the world would never be blessed with if we didn't have Mario Paint. We'd never been blessed with beautiful renditions of classic rock songs in the music editor if it weren't for Mario Paint. Now, what's really cool about Mario Paint was its accessory. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm getting at? You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm mousing to? You know what I'm doing mouse? You know mouse? Super Nintendo mouse? The Super Nintendo mouse, that's what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. It's a mouse that comes with Mario Paint that you plug into your Super Nintendo. And then you can use it for other games, man. You can use it for other games. One of my favorite other games to use this for was Operation Thunderbolt. Those games, those like arcade gallery shooter games, those are way better with the mouse. I think they were really difficult to use the standard SNES controller. Released in 1992 was Mario Paint, developed and published by Nintendo. Nintendo's classic mouse-powered SNES cartridge is a paint shop, animation studio, fly-killing game, and music composition program all rolled into one. Also, it has Mario always with the Mario. Sid Lexi says, kids today have it too easy. These days, if you want a digital picture of Yoshi saying that he's gay for Koopa Cock, you just do a Google image search for Yoshi, then open up the picture in Paint and add in some text. It won't take you more than a minute or two to do this. But if you wanted to make the same picture back in 1992, it was a lot more difficult. A lot of people didn't have computers back then, and a lot of people who did have them weren't online. Then, even if you were online, it was through a dial-up service like Prodigy or AOL that only offered limited access to the World Wide Web. And once you finally got onto the web, there was nothing there. Very few people had scanners, and digital cameras were selling for $13,000, so there was no practical way to get pictures online. Additionally, personal page services such as Angel Fire, GeoCities, AOL, Hometown, and Free Service didn't exist in 1992, so there weren't a whole lot of personal pages online. The web was a pretty boring place back then, filled primarily with government, college, and business sites. It sucked. Well, I don't know what you're talking about, said Lexia, and apparently you don't either, because he says, now, getting back to my initial scenario, it's 1992, and you want a picture of Yoshi talking about how much he loves dicks. A computer isn't going to be much help, so what do? The answer is simple, Mario Paint. Yes, with Mario Paint, you can instantly draw a Yoshi and make him say all the stupid homoerotic things you want. Heck, you can even animate it and set it to the tune of 1,000 cats being anally raped. If that's not fun, I don't know what is. That was a mouthful. That was a long, hard summary of Mario Paint. Sometimes you want a photo of Yoshi saying that he's gay for Koopa Dick. That's all Sid Lexi's trying to say. And back in the day, there was only one way to do it, and that way was Mario Paint. It's a cool game. I mean, it's not much by today's standards, unfortunately, but it's a really cool game back in the day. It let me do a lot of things and play around with my Super Nintendo in a way that would not have been possible with any other game. There was that one other terrible creative studio. There were a few of them, but the one I'm thinking about, it had like that 4 words on the front. It was like Fun Games. I've got to look it up. What the heck game am I thinking of? Okay, I'm going to kind of take you through live, like what I'm searching here on Google, and we'll see how long it takes us to get to it. So Super Nintendo Entertainment System, bad game, rare game, Mario Paint knockoff. Mario Paint, that's not what it is. 10 crazy rare Nintendo games. It might be in there. No. That's an international version. I'm gonna pause it. I'm gonna come back when I found it. Would you look at that? I'm back, baby. And it's just called Fun and Games Paint Games Music Style. That's what I was thinking of. This game's kind of rare. This is not what's 35th on the list. That's Mario Paint. I'm just saying that Fun and Games Paint Games Music Style. What was this released? It was released by Sony Electronic Fun Limited. I don't know. This Fun and Games cartridge, though, goes for like 75 bones these days, and it was a terrible game. It was not nearly as good as Mario Paint. Number 34, Killer Instinct. Released in 1995, developed by Rare, published by Nintendo. In a bleak dystopian future where corporations have replaced governments, the powerful Ultratech Corporation organizes a fighting tournament known as Killer Instinct to test the destructive capacity of its genetic and cybernetic creations. Shoot, just getting over that cold. I need like another day or two. Outside combatants are invited to the tournament with the promise that Ultratech will grant their greatest wishes if they win. Some fight for freedom, some fight for cures to their afflictions, some fight to restore lost honor, some fight simply to try and destroy Ultratech. To accomplish their goals, these fighters will defeat not only each other, but Idol, an ancient warlord that Ultratech rescued from a dimensional prison as well. Killer Instinct features 10 playable characters: Fulgor, Cinder, Glacius, Jago, Riptor, Saberwolf, Spinal, TJ Combo, Chief Thunder, and Black Orchid. This is one of those games where if you like the Super Nintendo pre-rendered 3D graphics, you'll like it. If you don't, if you think they've aged poorly, you're probably not going to put it up there in the top 35. I don't think I would. Sid Lexi, you did. Okay. But he says, honestly, I was never a big fan of Nintendo's pre-rendered 3D graphics. A big deal was made of them at the time, but virtually all of the games that used them would have looked a lot better in 2D than they did in claymation style 3D. I think that Super Street Fighter 2 looks a lot better than like Mortal Kombat during the same time. I think that Super Street Fighter looks a lot better than number 34 Killer Instinct. Yeah, I didn't really love the pre-rendered 3D graphics either, but if you did, this is one of the best fighting games on the Super Nintendo, and that's really all there is to say about that, because number 33 on to Mega Man X3. Mega Man X3, released in 1995, developed by Capcom, published by Capcom. Now, not as good of a game as Mega Man X, not as good of a game as Mega Man X2, but you can play as Zero. Do you understand what I'm saying? This guy, that since the very beginning of the Mega Man X series, you're like, oh, I just want to play as him. He's so powerful, he's so big, he's so strong, he's so sexy. I want to feel the meat of his sword inside me as I control him. I need Zero to be in me, to be with me, and I need to be in Zero and be with him. That's all I was saying in 1995. I don't know about you, but that's all I was saying. This is not the best game gameplay-wise in the Mega Man X series, but it's still pretty good. It's still pretty good. And you get to play as Zero. So you know in Mega Man X, you're going through the tutorial level, which Ego Raptor thinks is one of the best tutorials in video game history. You're going through the tutorial level, and then you come to the end of it, and there's this doofus that you can't take down. And you're like, oh no, my character X is so small and wimpy. And then Zero comes out of nowhere and just like, pa, 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 pa. You know, so he gives him about 8 of those. And then he's like, look at X, that's all you got to do. And someday you'll be as big and strong and powerful as me. And now we're talking literally years later. We finally get Mega Man X3. And now you can finally play as him. The payoff is 2 games later, which didn't happen a ton back in the days of Super Nintendo. That's why this is so fun to me. You can play as Zero. You know, once he's dead for good. He can't fight bosses, but you can still play as him. The big thing going against this game is that it's $200. You know, you can get Mega Man X for like $20. Mega Man X2 for like $100, and then Mega Man X3 costs like $200. It's absurd. I got the hiccups now. I got the hicks. I got the hicks, boys. I was talking about Mega Man X3 just a little too much, and I got a little too excited. And it just didn't work out for me because I got the hicks right in the middle of Mega Man X3. On to number 32, Spider-Man and Venom, Maximum Carnage. Released in 1994, developed by Software Creations, published by LGN. LGN gets a lot of crap. Mostly because the angry video game nerd just hates LGN, and it's like part of his shtick that as soon as the LJN logo comes up, he starts yelling about how terrible the LJN logo is, and he's triggered that he's seen the LJN logo. They released some decent games as far as I'm concerned. They were behind Royal Rumble on the Super Nintendo, which again, Riptide going on about his Royal Rumble, you know how I get. Roger Clemens MVP Baseball, I didn't hate that one either. Some people really like Jaws, the game on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Angry Video Game Nerd absolutely hates that one. Oh, can't stand it. Can't stand it. He is the angriest of all the angry video game nerds when it comes to LJN. But in this one, we're talking number 32 best game on the Super Nintendo. Spider-Man and Venom team up to take on an army of villains led by Carnage that includes Doppelganger, Shriek, Carrion, and the Demo Goblin in this classic beat-em-up from LJN based on the 14-part Marvel storyline. Along the way, you can obtain help from other Marvel heroes, specifically Black Cat, Captain America, Cloak, Dagger, Deathlock, Firestar, Iron Fist, and Morbius. The game also features a soundtrack by the rock band Green Jelly. Sid Lexia says, the beat-em-up genre is the one place where the Genesis and the Super NES were more or less evenly matched. The SNES had a bunch of great Capcom beat-em-ups, while the Genesis offered up Sega's equally excellent Streets of Rage and Golden Axe games. But then there were the ones that ended up on both platforms, like Maximum Carnage. The Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis versions of Maximum Carnage play exactly the same, but the SNES version is way better due to superior graphics and sound. I mean, I'm sure you're going to find some Sega Genesis owner to dispute that. But, when you're talking about beat-em-ups, I think that Hyperstone Heist on the Sega Genesis is close enough to where Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4 Turtles in Time is on the Super Nintendo, that Streets of Rage is going to give Sega Genesis the advantage in the beat-em-up genre. Kim Justice, whose opinion on video games I respect a lot, lists Streets of Rage 2 as the number one Sega Genesis game of all time. Maybe you're going to make some argument that the Sega Genesis was just that much weaker than the Super Nintendo, but even the absolute best beat-em-ups on the Super Nintendo don't sniff number one. Is that fair? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4 Turtles in Time is a very, very good game. Nobody is trying to say that that was the best game on the Super Nintendo. Meanwhile, you have a very well-respected person in the land of Sega Genesis ranking Streets of Rage 2 as the number one Sega Genesis game. That, for me, is where the Sega Genesis gets the edge in the beat-em-up genre. Super Nintendo had some good ones, though. Had some excellent beat-em-ups. This is one of them. I already mentioned Turtles 4. That's obviously a classic. Number 31. Are you ready for number 31? Because it's the last entry for this week. I'm sorry to say. I'm really sorry to say. It's been 48 minutes of fun thus far. 48 minutes of fun. Now we're down to one. After one, we're done. I'm gonna read it now. Dan Brown just sneezed very loudly from the other room. SimCity, released in 1991, developed by Nintendo, under license from Maxis, published by Nintendo. We all know what SimCity is. This is a pretty good port. It doesn't have that bad of slowdown. It inspired a plethora of other games. Sim Earth, Sim Tower, The Sims, Sim Ant, SimCity 2000. A lot of people like this game better on PC, but as far as a launch port for the Super Nintendo, especially for people that didn't have gaming PCs, which very, very few people did back in the day, you like, why would you go out and pay $4,000 or however much home computers cost back then if you're just trying to play games? Like, you know what I mean? If you're just trying to play games and like get a Super NES or get an NES or Mega Drive or Master System or whatever the frick you want. You don't need to go out and get a PC in 1989 trying to play games. Some people had them and then played games on them. But yeah, I mean, that's why a lot of them did not stick around and come to dominate the video game industry for, 20 years like Nintendo and relative to the computer market, Sega did. I mean, I think that the Sega Genesis is way more popular than any one gaming computer out there ever was. I mean, I know more people today probably play on PC, but that's because we've seen such substantial leaps in technology in PCs. This was not the case in the 1980s. You know what I mean? And these gaming PCs that you have today can do a lot of other things, but, they're still maxing out at... I mean, you can get by with $1,000, $2,000. These computers back in the day were outrageously expensive, and you were not spending that amount of money on a computer if all you wanted to do was play games on them. So a lot of people's first ever introduction to Super Nintendo's SimCity was SimCity on the Super Nintendo. And it's really fun. It's hard. It's nearly impossible without the infinite money cheat. I definitely... I haven't tried to approach too much with this with like my adult, hopefully more advanced than a 6-year-old in logic's brain. But when I was a kid, I could not freaking get anything done without people just being furious about taxes, kind of like real life. I just could not get anything done in this game unless I used the infinite money cheat. It didn't really make it any less fun for me. So I think 31 might be a little bit low for my ranking of SimCity because there's a lot of depth here and a lot of replayability that you don't see in other Super Nintendo games, but it wasn't super complicated. It was easy to play, easy to pick up, hard to master, hard to put down. In a lot of the best games from this era share those attributes. At least in my opinion, what makes these games, retro games specifically, great is they are easy to pick up and they are fun for the first time player, but as you play, more depths of strategy get added to it. Does that make sense? Now, sometimes this is included in the game. You know what I mean? Like SimCity so you can go and you can start putting stuff down on the map and start building a little city. If you want it to get really big and have enough money to do all of that stuff, though, then you have to start balancing the taxes. You have to balance what the people want, and it's kind of like built into the game. I can also appreciate it if it's kind of self-imposed, if that makes sense. Games that kind of gain a cult following. Whether it is Super Mario Strikers, or it is Mario Tennis, or it is NHL Hits, which has a lot of underground leagues, Tecmo Super Bowl. So like as you become more experienced, you can kind of outgrow competing against the AI in the game, but other humans coming in can kind of add a new wrinkle to the game that make them harder to play against, and then strategies amongst humans when they're playing against each other kind of evolve. Does that make sense? Like Mario Tennis is not the same game when you first pick it up as it is once you've put 50 or 100 hours into it. When you first pick it up, you're hitting A and you're getting it over the net and it feels good. You know what I'm saying? It feels satisfying to hit it over the net, so it makes you want to keep doing it. And then after you've got those hours put into it, all of a sudden you're into these insane rallies and you're worried about your positioning and what shot you're going to hit when and where you're going to aim it. And these new facets of the game sort of pop up. And that type of gameplay where things like that would happen was especially important back in the day, because experiences to like beat the game once through were not always 10 or 20 hours. Sometimes they were a few. And if you're going to pay $60 for a game in 1992, you're going to want to get more than 4 or 5 hours of enjoyment out of it. So the best games, you know, they were like Sim City, where they were easy to pick up, but as you got better at it, the game kind of evolved with you. Crash Team Racing is another great example of this, because you can go in and you can just compete in a race, and you're just going to drive straight and you're going to use the analog stick to make these turns and stuff. But then once you start thinking about all of the drifting and the power boost and when am I going to use my items, where and stuff, it just becomes like you're playing a totally different game. Whereas Mario Kart pretty much stays the same the whole time. There are ways that you can be a little better at it, but mostly it comes to like, just try to keep your cart on the track and hopefully items don't screw you over at the end. Crash Team Racing has many more layers to that, because you need to be going hard the entire time and be getting better at staying on the track and going faster while you're doing it. And that's why people who really, really love Crash Team Racing will tell you that it is miles better than Mario Kart. Any iteration of Mario Kart. Because there's more to do there long term, because there's more variation on the path to mastery of Crash Team Racing than there is on Mario Kart. I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly or not, or in a way that's going to convert somebody from liking Mario Kart more to liking Crash Team Racing more. I'm just telling you why I like Crash Team Racing better than Mario Kart, why I like these older games like Sim City more than something that spoon feeds you these days. And maybe not everybody has the time to go, you know, try to muster up their own enthusiasm and creativity and imagination to play games. And that's fine. I want you to play games in the way that gives you the most enjoyment. I'm just some babbling idiot here on the internet that's telling you what gives me the most enjoyment. And if you don't like what I'm saying, that's fine, because it's the end of the episode anyways. We've done our 10 for this week. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me. I've kind of had to tone down the enthusiasm in the last part of this podcast because my voice is taking a beating. Just all the coughing and being sick lately has not, been very good to my voice, but I'm sure it'll be back for next time. And I hope I didn't, place the bubonic plague on this microphone, or else we're going to have some real problems. You know, if 75% of the You Meme BTC network goes down with unidentified bubonic plague symptoms. I don't know. Dan Brown, start the music. I don't know. Maybe he already started it, but, yeah, boy, that shout for Dan Brown even did. I kind of had to quiet down at the end here, or else I was going to start coughing and just, wreck your eardrums, and I tried not to do that. But again, guys, sorry for the gravelly voice this week, but I hope you love me way more than you love Alec Baldwin, because eToro sure doesn't. YouMemeBTC.com/trade. Check it out. Check this out. Check who's out. Check it out next time when we've got number 30, number 29, number 28, number 27, number 26, number 25, number 24, number 23, number 22, number 21 on our countdown of the 100 best Super Nintendo video games of all time. Only 3 more episodes to go, guys, and then we're done with this series, which was really crazy. I never thought that this would have went 10 minutes. I also never thought that this exact podcast would have gone an hour, but we've got to get some other idiot in here, probably Tim Baker or something. I don't know. Who knows? Tim doesn't know. You don't know. I don't know. You mean BTC.com/trade. Thanks. Bye.